Ladies and gentlemen, this is your last retest on Chapter 7 on the multiplication and division of polynomials. We have the first 6 questions here are true and false questions, and if any questions ever give students difficulty, it's usually the true-false. So the first question says, true or false, that 2x plus 2x is 8x squared divided by 2. Well, for some students who have a difficult time differentiating between, Kira, between addition and multiplication of monomials, they would realize that when you are adding them, they have to be like terms. And since these are like terms, you can combine them by gathering the coefficients and keeping the term itself as is. But over here, when you divide, the difference is you divide the entire term by 2, meaning cutting it in half. If you have a difficult time, you can think about what 8x squared would look like. And once you knew that, if you were to cut this in half, you would have 4x squared. And since 4x squared does not equal 4x, the answer for number 1 is false. Question 2, the sum of this and this is equal to the distributive property version of this times this. First question, when I try to add those two together, can I add them together, Kira? The answer is no. Why? Because that's right, because they are not like terms. So therefore, this must stay as is. When I expand using distributive property, 2x multiplied by x is 2x squared, and 2x multiplied by 1 is just 2x. And therefore, we can see that this expression and this expression are the same. So therefore, for question 2, we say true. Those are the same thing. Question 3, we need to simplify the division of this binomial by monomial by using distributive property. If you wanted to on your test, what I would recommend for those of you who struggle just a bit, since each of these terms in the binomial are going to be divided by 2x, rewrite it. You're going to divide your coefficients to get 1. You're going to divide x squared divided by x to get x. Your answer is just 1x. And any number divided by itself, including algebraic expressions, results in 1. So therefore, since both of these sides have a value of x minus or x plus 1, the answer for question 3 is true. Next question, 2x multiplied by 3x is equal to 5x. Well, when we multiply them, do we add the coefficients or multiply the coefficients? That's right, we multiply, meaning since these are not the same thing, this is your proof, this is your answer. False, they are not the same value. And finally, 10x cubed divided by 10x cubed. 10 divided by 10 is 1, x cubed divided by x cubed is 1. Therefore, it's not 0, it's actually 1, and therefore your answer is false. It's not equal to 0, it's equal to 1. And finally, if a rectangle has a length of 10 and a width of x minus 1, its area will be 10x minus 1. First step you should do to prove it is draw it. Then you will say, okay, area is equal to length times width. Area is equal to 10 multiplied by x minus 1. Using distributive property, we'll see that 10x minus 10 is the area. And since this says 10x minus 1, the answer is false. It should be 10x minus 10. Continuing along, solve by modeling, we have a monomial multiplied by a monomial, or a length times the width. So we're going to put a 3x in here. Our length or our width, it doesn't matter, that's our 3x. Negative 2x will be our other direction here. Then we will simply compartmentalize the whole thing. Ask ourselves, will those be positive or negative x squareds, Jackson? They will be negative, and therefore your answer is negative 6x squareds, which is your area inside there. Question 8, solved by modeling. This is division. This is going to be a side, and your top part of your division will always be your area in terms of modeling, and your answer will be the other side. So the first thing you always draw in division is draw one of your sides. This is going to be x. Then put a line across here and see if you can fit in your area. I could do so like this. Erase your superfluous junk and figure out what the missing side is. In this case, your missing side is going to be 2 negative x's, and therefore, ergo, that is your answer. or sorry, sorry, it's your missing side. So that's going to be negative 2x, your missing side. Question 9, solve by modeling. Multiplication of a monomial. I'll put my monomial down here. They're positive, so I'll shade them in. Your binomial will be an x and a minus 4. When you shade in all your stuff in here, ask yourselves, are they positive or negatives? These are going to be positive. Those will be negative, and therefore your answer is the area, which will be 2x squared and a minus 8x. That's what's inside. There. I made a mistake going back to 8. This was supposed to be a positive 2x squared. I put it as negative, and therefore these will be positive, and therefore this will be positive, and that's your answer for question 8. I made a mistake. I'm human. I might be amazing, but I'm still human. Here we have question 10, which is the division of a binomial by a monomial. In your divisions, always start with your monomial. I'm going to put 2x's here. Put your area over here and see if you could fit in these two terms. Sorry, if I put this in, I have my negative x squared and my negative x squared. So I have this part done. 4x's, I shade them in positive. Those are my 4x's. They're in, so I now have allocated my area. The binomial is now my area. And the missing side is what the answer is to this division. In which case, it's a negative x and 2 positive. So the answer is negative x and positive 2. Just stop me if I make a mistake. And finally, your last two more modeling questions are area models without the actual algebra tiles, but rather just compartmentalizing the area of binomials and monomials. Here we have a binomial, here we have a monomial. This will be our monomial side. This distance from here to here will be 2x, and this distance from here to here will be negative 7. The individual areas of both will result in the area of the composite figure, meaning added together. So 2x times x will equal 2x squared, and x minus negative 7 will be negative 7x, and therefore your solution will be 2x squared minus 7x. If on your test, show your work here like this. Show those two parts of you multiplying your length by your width. If my highlighter will come up here. I don't know either. Maybe it is. Question 12, the exact same thing. So your binomial will be 4x minus 8, negative 2 here. 4x minus negative 2, and negative 2 times negative 8. It'll be negative 8x here and positive 16. So your answer, oh, sorry. No, I did that wrong again. See? Why is no one stopping me? Here we have division. We have a binomial and monomial. Your binomial, the top number here, will actually represent your area. So it's going to be a 4x in here and a negative 8 over here. And your other one is negative 2. So this side here will be 4x divided by negative 2, and this side will be negative 8 divided by negative 2, which will mean this side here is negative 2x, and this side over here is a positive 4. So therefore your solution is negative 2x plus 4. And there's your work again. For those of you who are good students and want to show your work properly, make sure you show how you got your actual side lengths. Say again? No. Interesting. Your next ones are just distributive property. And remember, when you're multiplying a monomial by a monomial, you're really multiplying 2 times x times 4 times x. And with the associative property, the order in which you multiply them doesn't matter, so I'm going to multiply my coefficients first. And x times x, when we go back into our exponents, is x squared. So your solution is this. Negative 2 times negative 5 times x will be positive 10. X times x times x is x cubed. So your solution is 10x cubed. Here, if you divide your coefficients, or in this case 10 and negative 5, you'll get a negative 2. X squared divided by x squared is 1, or multiplied by 1. Since multiplying by 1 doesn't have any effect on the product, Oopsie daisy. Then when I put these through here, it really cancels it out, and my answer, my solution, will be just the number -2. Question 16, if there's a question that screws people up, it's this one. 2 divided by 2 is going to be 1/2 when I reduce it, or 1/2 as a fraction, or 0.5 as a coefficient. 2 divided by 4 is a half, and x squared divided by x is just x. So your solution could be a half x, or if you change it to a decimal, 0.5x. And finally, your last one, multiplying your coefficients, 0.5 or half of 4 or half times 4 is 2. X times x is x squared, and y stands by itself. Remember, this is still a monomial because the multiplication of a monomial by a monomial will result in a monomial. And again, if you want to think of that broken down, it's 0.5 times x times 4 times x times y. We multiply the x's together, gives your x squared, and the y stays by itself. Your next questions are distributive property again, using your arrows. Multiply it like this. 2 times 3x is 6x. 2 times -4 is -8. This negative sign outside the brackets, can anyone tell me what it represents? Jackson, what does it represent? Go ahead, Morgan. -1. So this question is the same thing as this, which means each term must be multiplied by -1, or the opposite of this entire trinomial. When I multiply something by -1, I create its opposite term. So in this case, the opposite of this will be a -x squared, a +2x, and a +3. The same thing I would get when I multiply it out here. So your solution is this. And finally, multiplication out this way. -2x times -2x is 4x squared. -2x times -5 is +10x. And your solution for number 20 is a +4x squared plus 10x. Oh, exciting, more of them. Division, 10x divided by -2x, and -2x divided by -2x. Make sure you write down your work because each term is divided by that. 10 divided by -2 is -5. X divided by x, x squared becomes x. And -2x divided by -2x is a +1. So your solution is -5x plus 1. 12x squared divided by -2, -8x divided by -2, and 4 divided by -2. This will result in -6x squared, +4x, and -2 as a solution. Again, you divided each term by it. Make sure you show your work on your test. So I know you just didn't cheat off of Danny Lynn when you were sitting next to her. Not that I'm saying that you would. I'm just saying if you did. I don't know why I chose that name. I should have said Jackson, but I didn't. -10x squared divided by, just seeing if you're awake, and 40x divided by 20x. When you divide -10 by 20, you get a -0.5. X squared divided by x is x. 20 divided by 20, or 40 divided by 20 is 2, or +2. X remaining by itself. Oh, I forgot to put this x here. And therefore your answer is this, and that's your solution. Your last two questions, question 24, what do I expect you to do if it's a story problem? Draw it out, just draw a picture. A rectangle has an area of, the area is 12x squared plus 12x plus 4, that's the area. And the side length, or the width, is 4. So given this, if you're going to calculate the perimeter, you realize you're missing this side length, which you need. So this side length will be this area divided by the side you know will equal the side you don't. When you use distributive property, your missing side length will be 3x squared plus 3x, not 4x, Mr. Mac, plus 1. Once you have that, your perimeter. Now pay attention, because this is for smart people. You could be a smart person too if you follow this directions. Write your formula out. 2 lengths and 2 widths make a perimeter, or 2 lengths and 2 widths make the distance around an object, a rectangle, or 2 of these bad boys plus 2 of these bad boys would be its perimeter. Use your distributive property to show you're a genius. 6x squared plus 6x plus 2 plus 8. Now that I'm adding a very long trinomial with a very short constant, I can gather like terms of the constants, and my final answer will be the perimeter of this object is this trinomial. And your last question, fill in the pyramid. It tells you what operations to use. So it says multiplication is how these 2 bricks got this one. So the area, or the trinomial, divided by the monomial will equal this square up here. So therefore, this one will be a negative x squared. No, it won't. Yes, it will be. It'll be a negative x squared. Sorry, I had a brain fart. It'll be a positive 2x, and it'll be a negative 1.5. So your brick below is going to be that one. Then these 2 will multiply to get this one, meaning the monomial and this one negative x squared plus 2x minus 1.5, meaning if I use distributive property, this one up here will be negative x cubed, because x times x squared is x cubed, positive 2x squared, and negative 1.5x. Your last one is to add those together to get the brick above it. I'm adding a trinomial to a trinomial. Gather like terms. There's only one x cubed, so I'm going to add that one first. A 2x squared and a 2x squared make a positive 4x squared. A negative 4x and a negative 1.5x, negative 5.5x. And the constant of plus 3 stays by itself. And therefore, the top brick of your pyramid in this particular case will be the 4-term polynomial, negative x cubed plus 4x squared minus 5.5x plus 3.